I'll try and give you a very brief rundown, a resume, to sort of explain how it all started, how I ended up being repeatedly raided, arrested by the City of London counter-terrorism squad, what they charged me with, the reasons why, the fact that they've spent millions trying to prosecute me to get me into court. If I was just to tell you now instantly, I promise you none of you would believe me. You just wouldn't. You'd say, no way. There is absolutely... Okay. It is so incredible, and the fact that, you know, obviously being arrested constantly by the counter-terrorism directorate, without being too smug, I generally don't fit the perception, rightly or wrongly, of the kind of guy, I'm a plumber, that would be repeatedly raided by City of London counter-terrorism directorate. Apart from our little friend there, who deserves it, obviously. So thanks, Chris. But yeah, I'll try and explain very briefly how it all started. In 2009, I found out my wife was having an affair. And let's be really frank, these things happen. Obviously at the time I wasn't as pragmatic, I was deeply upset, but these things happen and they always will. Trying to resolve the issue, I rang up the chap who was a very, very influential chap in the city, and I rang him up and asked for my wife to be moved, and he wasn't going to do that, so I rang up the chairman of the company and very politely said, look, we've got this problem, I'd like my wife to be moved. She was working as his secretary, so we can sort this nonsense out. Not an unreasonable request. The chap that she'd had the affair with was the European CEO of the world's largest reinsurance company. Now, by me ringing up his boss, the chairman, and asking for him to be moved, not unreasonably in my experience or in my opinion, he felt that that could damage his reputation. So he went to the police and he reported me for making the allegation of an affair. You couldn't make it up. You couldn't make it up. Sussex police wisely looked at the situation and confirmed in writing that it was not a criminal matter, and that if they did pursue it, he probably wouldn't turn up in court, because as a CEO, business leader of the world's largest reinsurance company, a company called Guy Carpenter Limited, he had a lot to lose. It all became very public. Think of Ryan Giggs and all these celebrities that have super injunctions, and the minute it comes out, it spreads even more than it probably would normally, for the simple reason that people want to get the inside news, find out what the secrets are. So they confirmed in writing that it was a civil matter, not a criminal matter, and they declined to get involved. This is where it gets very, very sinister. Now, none of you obviously know me, and I will make jokes through this. Not jokes because I want to be funny, but that's just my way of dealing with things, if that makes sense. I'm not here to... This is a very, very serious subject, and I like to smile because it's so much easier than being miserable and upset. So what then happened was this chap used his influence in the City of London and went to a company called KROLL. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with a company called KROLL, quite a few of you. KROLL are the world's biggest private security company. Now, KROLL confirmed, and this is where it starts to get a bit darker, KROLL confirmed in writing that Sussex police had said it was a civil matter. However, they had contacts at the City of London police at very senior level. They had contacts because their head of security at KROLL's security company was ex-City of London police. And they confirmed in writing that their head of security, Dan Mead, was going to go and meet Detective Superintendent Davis and Detective Chief Inspector Chandler. So KROLL, the private security, meet the City of London police, and the City of London police confirm in writing that they can use the Counter-Terrorism Act to raid me. The counter-terrorism, I said I'm a plumber, I run a small company, I employ people, and they would put considerable resources. The managing director of KROLL then rings me, and obviously I'm not going to use any foul language, and says that he's going to F me like I've never been F'd before, and that they have very, very deep pockets. Just after that, my house is raided by the Counter-Terrorism Directorate. My company, plumbing company, has got nothing to do with this affair whatsoever. They're raided by the counter-terrorism directorate. And my company accountants, that are certainly not involved in any of this nonsense, they're raided by the counter-terrorism directorate in something called Operation Bohan. The documents that I was able to get under the Freedom of Information request, and also largely from the CPS, disclosed that I've been under major surveillance for a very, very long time. And basically it all culminated in this big, huge dawn raid on my home, on my company, and on my accountants, all because of an affair. Now, obviously I've never been in trouble before. I think if anyone that's seen me on the internet, I do say I'm guilty of a few parking offences, one or two. I think it might be, what will I say, one or two. Then, obviously I'm raided, I'm taken away, never been in trouble before. Police are very nice to me, so at that moment in time, police are very nice to me. And obviously I was terrified, to be really frank, really, absolutely terrified. So in the police car in the morning, while I'm being taken away, I told the police everything in the car, as you would expect. But nothing. At this point, I don't see how I've done anything majorly wrong. And as far as I'm concerned, this huge raid was just, I don't know, didn't know what it was. So get to the police station. I am cautioned, and the police officers say, right. I declined a solicitor, by the way. I've never, declined a solicitor. I didn't feel I've done anything wrong. I don't need a solicitor to tell me what I can and can't say. If you've got nothing to hide. At that time, I believed that if you tell the truth, it'll be fine. So I explained the circumstances in very much the same way that I have done with you. That's it. I'm taken out. I'm in the cell. They left me in the cells all day. They took me home that evening. I then had to go back a week later. 4 weeks later, and they take me to another high security police station, and I'm then charged with non-violent harassment for making the phone calls. And obviously I've given a full confession that I've made the phone calls, so there's no dispute about anything. This is when it gets sinister again. Detective Sergeant John Ellis says, we need to re-interview you. So I said, okay. They took me through the station. They took me through to an interview room. And in that room, I'm brutalised. I'm brutalised by, I'm a big fella, but I'm a complete wimp. I'm brutalised by John Ellis. He says that we've got the forensics back because when they raided me on that big day, they took everything, they took my computers from my office, from my home, my phone, my digital camera, my satellite navigation system. And he says that we've got forensics of you taking cocaine. We've got photographs of you taking cocaine. And I said, well, that's really, really easy to explain because I've never seen cocaine. So there's no photographs of me. They don't exist because I've never seen them. So I demand to see the photographs. Now, remember, there's no record of this interview. I'm not being cautioned. There's no tape recordings. There's none of the police formalities that they have to adhere to. So he starts effing and blinding and starts threatening me. So he said, you must have done cocaine when you were at university. And I said, well, I've been to a university, obviously, but I didn't go to university. When I left school, I worked for the council as a plumber, did a plumbing apprenticeship. So anyway, he got progressively more angry. The interview didn't get anywhere because obviously I was demanding to see the picture, and in the end he said that the picture didn't exist. I put a complaint into the IPCC. I have to say I was warned by so many people. I didn't know. I was warned by so many people that they will cover it up and all the rest of it. But anyway, they did. The CCTV all got wiped. When the IPCC officer who worked with the officers rang me, Craig Mullish, and said, he said, can you describe the two officers? I'm a bit concerned. I want to make sure that we're talking about the same two officers that took you through to that room. The officers don't deny taking me through to that room and interviewing me. They can't remember. They made no notes. There's no records. And it was only a friendly officer who was appalled at what they'd done actually contacted me and said, tell the IPCC to check the door locks. So there's me, a plumber, contacting Craig Malish, made a phone call. I thought I'd better back it up with an email because he'll deny I did it. So I sent him an email saying, check the door locks because they will show that they were accessed by those officers, taking me through to the interview room. Obviously there'll be a 15-minute delay while they interview me. and then obviously the doors will be exited again. So the officer checks them, obviously they correspond, and now the officers do remember taking me through to the room. In fact, they actually say that I wanted to go through to, and even that room existed. and they just come out with a pack of lies. And I was so angry that I hadn't hurt anybody, I hadn't threatened anybody, I'm a very, very peaceful man, I'm not violent at all, that they could brutalise me, screaming in my face, calling me an effing this, that and the other, for an affair. For an affair. I was so angry, and I thought if they could do that to me, because I'm not the kind of bloke that generally has all this kind of nonsense, if they could do that to me, they could do that to anybody. And obviously I got to speak to people, and I started to make a fuss about it, I don't think unreasonably. And some friendly police officers said, look, you know, that officer that did that, has done it before. You wouldn't have an officer that's never behaved like that in his life, and has suddenly behaved like that. That would be part of his behaviour. That would be a normalised behaviour. And I thought, I'm not going to let these guys get away with it. So we get to my first court hearing, and in my first court hearing, there's pages and pages of bail conditions against me. And at my first court hearing, the case has to be adjourned because the paperwork in the court isn't there. It's been lost. It's been mislaid. So another officer, counter-terrorism officer, stands up in court. The magistrate says, "What's this all about?" And the police officer says, "Well, Mr. Puddick has threatened all of these people." And the magistrate says, "Well, he's not charged with any threatening behaviour. Can you tell me what the nature of the threats are?" And he sort of swerves the question and says, well, the threats were specific, they were targeted, they were directed. And the magistrate says, I understand all of that, can you tell me what the threats are? He asks him 2 times. He swerves them again. The magistrate says, I'm feeling very threatened by Mr. Puddick now. I want a yes or no. Has Mr. Puddick threatened anybody with violence? Yes or no? Policeman says, no. So he says, well, what's this about? What's Mr. Puddick done that is so threatening that doesn't involve violence? And he said, well, Mr. Puddick alleges that his partner had an affair with Mr. So-and-so. That is vigorously denied. We have investigated. Remember, this is the counter-terrorism directorate. We're not talking about the Parks Police. We have thoroughly investigated it and found no evidence of an affair. Now, I've not been to court before, so I didn't know what it was all about. So I didn't know the court process, when you speak, when you don't speak. So I thought, resort to school, and I put my hand up. So I'm standing there like a prefect, not that I went to a posh school. I put my hand up, and the magistrate addressed me and said, Mr. Puddick, and I said, could you ask Briars, Detective Constable Briars, in their thorough examination of this big case, could you ask them why they haven't interviewed my partner? And the magistrate looked at me and I said, and he turned around to Detective Constable Briars and said, Detective Constable Briars, please tell me that you have interviewed Mr. Puddick's partner. He said, no, she's not a material witness. I kid you not, As we left the court case, just before we left, the magistrate removed all the bail conditions. We removed all of the bail conditions. So I went in there with really severe, stringent bail conditions, and I walked out with none. I was getting more and more angry at all this nonsense. I started to blog about it. I went to the press, but because it was the counter-terrorism directorate, and it's quite involved, from what I've just told you so far, press were, well, not sure where this is going to go. Would you believe me at this stage? It all sounds very fanciful, and I completely accept that. As we walked out of that courtroom that day, the officer called me a W. I'll say no more than that, because he was angry. He'd gone in there and he'd come out, lost all of the bail conditions. Obviously, he's going to have to explain that to somebody. The chap that's bringing the charge against me, the chap that had the affair that completely denied it, we've got a counter-terrorism officer now on oath saying that there was no affair. Suppose I don't care about the affair. This is far more important, because you're talking about your human rights, you're talking about your essential freedoms, and you're talking about the state getting involved in all this kind of nonsense. For what? And we're going to come to what that for what is shortly. So the case against me. I've been brutalised. I've been to court. Been told in court that there was no affair. Essentially, it's all been made up. My wife is then interviewed, and some police officers turn up from City of London Police at her office at the reinsurance company, a different part of it, because she'd been moved by them because of my phone call to the chairman who kindly moved her. Police officers turn up, and she's interviewed for an hour. She's interviewed for an hour in a glass office in the centre of the building, so there's people all around with 2 uniformed police officers. So I asked her to send an email to her HR department and make sure that's noted on her HR file. The company turned around and said, look, nothing to do with us. If police officers turn up at the office and they want to interview you, we can't impede in their duty, so we have to allow them to do it. It's nothing to do with the company. They chose to come here. She said, well, I just want their names. And they said, well, we don't know anything about it. And she said, but you're the HR director, you were here, you were there in the interview. She was nervous and scared and didn't make any notes and didn't write down their names. So she contacted City of London Police and said, look, this is a couple of days later, just had some of your officers down here, can I get their names, please? No officers have attended. No, they have. They were here for an hour. It wasn't like a 5-minute misunderstanding, a little conversation in a doorway in a meeting for over an hour. And in the meeting, they suggested to her, they said, why would your husband make up an affair? And she said, no. She told the truth, said there'd been an affair. And they said, no, we believe it's because your husband's a plumber, this chap's a multi-millionaire, and he's jealous of his city status and his wealth. And she said, no, honestly, you should meet my husband. He really wouldn't be like that. Which is true. I promise. So I'm just trying to illustrate, because we're going to get to the big stuff soon. You think this is all petty stuff, really. I'm going to get to the big stuff. So I'm just setting the background out. So anyway, the police have no record, the officers that attended have no record, the company has no record, they can't get involved because the police have just turned up. However, what's really, really interesting is later on we managed to get the emails, and it was the company that had the relationship with the police, and it's all done underhand. Now, how can a private American company, I'm not against companies, I run a company, I run a plumbing company, how can a private American company have a private police force? Now,
I know, we've got the biggest secret police force in the world in this country.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Nobody knows about it.
So anyway, so my partner then, it all came out with the HR about how this chap had been misusing his expenses, company expenses. Now, when you're on over £1 million a year, you're paid to make the right judgments. It's about your integrity. Yeah? However you look at it, rightly or wrongly, when you're in the financial industry, making big decisions, when you fiddle your expenses, there's a question mark over your integrity. So the company started an investigation into this chap's expenses, and after 34 years, at the beginning of the disciplinary process against him, he resigns. Case against me is dropped. Can't go to court now because of the expenses. It's going to be very, very damaging. I'm dropped. Free man, no pun intended. And I was just so angry at what the police had done to me, raided my home, raided my office. They'd spent over £1 million on Operation Bohan.
Ian, is that them raiding your home?
Yeah, I'm going to come to this. I'm going to come to this with some of the pictures. This is when I was protesting about it. I'll go through some of the pictures and put it in some kind of context. So I'm a free man. It's all over. Police have dropped the charge against me for making the phone call. It's all over. I'm so angry at the police. You know, most people will be upset about the affair. Didn't have time for all that. Well, I did, but I was more angry that the police would do what they did to me and brutalise me over all this nonsense. It was just, I've been brought up to be respectful of authority and not to, almost in some occasions, not even question authority. So I just thought, I'm not going to let them get away with it. So what I did was, I then went on a little campaign. Case against me is dropped. I went outside Parliament. Anyone seen the video of me outside Parliament? It's me just telling the story that I've just told you, in obviously a little bit less detail. And at the end of the story, on the video on the internet, I just say, if my partner had had an affair with the milkman and I telephoned the dairy and asked for her to be moved, would I be raided by the counter-terrorism directorate? It's a rhetorical question. We all know the answer. It's a massive abuse of power. Yeah? A massive, massive abuse of power. And I was not going to let them get away with it. I went to the press. The press were all not good. I mean, I found myself in a whole world of pain that I didn't know existed. So what I did was I tried to publicise it. Went to all the press wouldn't touch it. I thought, how can I publicise this and get this into the public domain? Because this, one, should not be allowed to happen. Two, the people responsible for this should be accountable in the same way that they tried to throw the book at me, or one policeman said, we taught you how to catch. And I said, what's that mean? He said, well, we threw the book at you. The resources that they chucked at me for a very minor, petty matter, and yet these people can pull the strings, bring out millions of pounds, counter-terrorism directorate, over this nonsense. I mean, the policeman standing on his oath saying, no, there was no affair, we looked into it, definitely no affair, the guy's made it all up, he's jealous. I mean, when a policeman swears an oath, that oath has to have meaning. The minute they start lying and deceiving and just coming out with all the nonsense that they come out with, one, they dishonour that oath, but they render the office of constable as meaningless. And it has to have meaning. Just for all of us, it just has to have some kind of meaning, if that makes sense. So this is what I did to try and publicise it, and by publicising it, I got raided again by the murder squad. Not unreasonably, obviously. I'll show you some of the pictures. This is me. I'm a plumber. This is a solar. I just thought it was a nice, fun slide to start with. Really, that's after installing a solar. I thought it'd be great to dress up as Darth Vader. Why wouldn't you? That's my plumbing company. We find leaks. First thing I did was I've never protested before, and I've never voted. So whatever I say is not to have a political bias, well, not indirectly or not consciously, maybe subconsciously. Some would argue. So what did I do? This was in the summer of 2010. Parliament Square is full of peace activists, anti-war. Every flavour that you can imagine of activists, anarchists, they're all on there. Now, I've never camped, I've never done anything like this before, so I got a banner made up, went to Millet's, bought a cheap tent and all the bits. Friday night I decided I'm going to get there, get too scared, lose my bottle. Saturday, not a great day to start being an activist. Sunday, I thought if I don't do it today, it's not going to happen. So Sunday lunchtime, I pull up in my car, I leave all my camping gear in the back of my car. Sunday you can park around the back of Parliament, it's the only time you can park there. So I thought what I'd do is I'll go and test the water. So I pull up to a group of peace activists who are all sat there. And you can see me in my jacket and jeans, that's normally how I dress. And I said, look, I'll come to protest, but I don't know what to do. One of them told me to F off. And then this little South African guy, Rob, who does little bits of work with us now, my plumbing company, he said, look, I can't do his accent, but he said, come over and camp with me. So I went back to the car, he came with me, got all my gear, and he was really nice. He went and made me a cup of tea. And that was my first day. I'd been there for probably about half an hour there, looking smug, looking like I was physically doing something. The journalists would be coming around, and I was there for a while. So that was my start of my little crusade to publicise it. I hadn't been rearrested at this point. That's my tent, telling the story, £1.5 million worth of taxpayers' money, using counter-terrorism for what? Just for nothing, really, or for nothing. These are my neighbours. I don't know if any of you go camping. The only thing I would say that if you do go camping, don't camp next to anarchists. They sleep all day and they just make terrible noise at night. They don't play their guitars, they make loads of noise. But they're all very, very nice. What was interesting, for the first few days, nobody would talk to me because they all thought I was an undercover cop trying to infiltrate them. Prejudice is alive everywhere. At this point, I'm rearrested. I've created my website, which I'm now trying to promote by my banner, being there. I'm putting handing out leaflets. I'm trying to publicise my case in a way, the only way that I knew how, via the internet and through word of mouth. And through the anarchists. No. I kept them well away. That was my view from my tent. I only put this in because it's just quite a nice picture, really. Literally, I'd open up my tent in the morning, and that was my view. Not many people get that view, so it's quite a nice one to share. Colonel Gaddafi's house, this is absolutely true, it's not a joke. That's Colonel Gaddafi's London house. He still owes us £400. We found a leak on his jacuzzi some time ago. I don't think we're going to be getting that, but that's genuinely his house. So I put, that's my website, policeexpenses.co.uk. So I've been arrested. I've been re-arrested by the counter-terrorism police and the murder squad for creating that website. And I'm charged, the charge against me is, this, because the people say, but what were you charged over? The charge against me was Section 2, non-violent harassment, creating an unlawful blog. And that's my blog. It's still there today. We'll get to the court case and what the police did in court and how they misbehaved. Now, the reason that they said the reason that they said that the website was unlawful and they had to re-raid my home and my office again the second time was that the website that I created had it was so harassing in its content that the chap that my wife had had the affair with was forced to resign due to my website. Now, he's not even in it. It's about the police. There's plenty of stuff about the police, trust me. But he's not named or mentioned once. But what they said was the effect that it had, because he knew he was involved, the effect that it had on him was so great he had to resign. What the police forgot was he resigned from his job when he was investigated over making fraudulent expense claims after 34 years. He resigned on the 22nd of February 2010. I created my blog in May, the end of May. So even with the dates, they just couldn't stack up in court. So they were on a hiding to nothing. But anyway, they pursued it. They had nothing on me. That's all they could create. That's all they could create. And I steadily became more of a nuisance. And I believe rightly so. This is one of the this is one of the flyers that I would hand out. I then started going to Speaker's Corner. I was a regular speaker at Speaker's Corner every Sunday, hence the banner there. I went to Speaker's Corner every Sunday, even when it was raining, because I was really sad. And I had a big bee in my bonnet. And that was my banner. What the police, basically a narrative of what the police had done to me. This guy here, you can't see him fortunately, was a very, very senior policeman, retired policeman. And I was all a bit paranoid myself, but he was down with his family from another part of the country who was very, 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 very sympathetic. And he actually ended up giving me lots of help. And at first I wasn't sure if he was really helping me, if that makes sense. I just didn't know who to trust. I didn't know who to trust. It sounds paranoid, and there is some paranoia there. But with everything that they'd done to me, I didn't know. But he actually was really good. He was really, really good. And there are lots of really good people there. You know, people say, oh, the whole world's bad and stuff, but you know, eBay works because people are generally, not always, but generally, inherently good. Another picture there. These pictures, by the way, they're not well, they've been given to me. There's a photographer who I'm sure is undercover police who goes to the Speaker's Corner every Sunday just taking pictures of everybody. So I said to him, could I have all pictures of me, please? He went, yeah. So this is quite a good one. These are delegates from these are family members that come over from China, from the Chinese embassy. And the ambassador's wife is just out of shot here. And what I was talking about was our essential freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom to communicate, freedom to impart information, and especially if what you say is true, it's said in a non-aggressive, non-threatening, constructive way. You should have a right to say anything. Yeah. You know, if you're going, and it's aggressive and you're threatening and your whole demeanour, well, there are questions perhaps about that. But when what you say is true and said respectfully and constructively, you should have a right to say it. You shouldn't be arrested by the counter-terrorism squad. And I felt strong about it. And it was quite interesting getting these guys' views, because they were saying, well, no, if the police have said you can't say it, you can't say it. And these are young men and women from China. And it was the ambassador's wife that was saying that's crap. Shouldn't say that, but she was really good. She was great. She's saying, no, it's essential. People have died. I don't need to teach you all this. People have died for our freedoms, haven't they? They've died for our freedoms. And there are so many people that will readily take them away. Very, very quickly. They don't do it overnight. What they do is they make small little legislative changes that chip away at our freedoms. So it is really, really important. As I said, I've never voted, but I felt so strongly that what they did to me, I was not going to let them get away with it. quite an important one, that. It's one of, across London, the M25, over one weekend, 20 and 30-foot banners of my website went up. Some very, very helpful activists did that along the North Circular, so I hear. So we tried to publicise the website as directly as we could and in an enjoyable way, a non-threatening way, just to try and publicise it. Interestingly, the pictures you saw of me at Speaker's Corner, one of the times when I was rearrested again for speaking at Speaker's Corner, they'd have every flavour there. You'd have the EDL, you'd have all different forms of extremism, and people would get, not violent, but they would shout and they'd be very, very aggressive in what they were saying. And there's me very peacefully handing out brochures saying, I'm going to court, I've been charged with creating this website, please support me. Everything I say is true, I have a right to say it. And the police would arrest me. The police would arrest me. It's really funny. It's really funny. What they would do, they would send undercover officers. These are counter-terrorist officers from the City of London Police. Speaker's Corner is out of their jurisdiction. It's in the Metropolitan Police area at Hyde Park in central London. So on a Sunday, they would send officers in, undercover, and I'd have a big crowd and I'd be talking to them. And then occasionally, you'd have someone say, what's this bloke's name this is all about? I said, no, it's got nothing to do with him. It's about what the police did in his name. It's what the police did. Yeah, but who is he? What's his name? And I never mention his name. Because it's not about him. It's all about what the police did. Yeah? The police swear an oath to uphold the law. We don't. And they dishonour it when they lie and cheat and do all these kind of things. My first court case. There's a few there. We went to Starbucks. Afterwards. I got everyone a coffee, some cakes. Just one of my plumbing bags. Sat in the toilet there. As I said, we spend so much time at work. It's important that it's just a nice, pleasant place to work, really, if that makes sense. That's it for my pictures. So we get to my trial, and I'm charged now with publicising my website. The actual charges for creating this website. I borrow some money. I borrow quite a bit of money, and I get a great QC. I get one of the best in the UK. In fact, he's been voted Britain's best cross-examiner.
Crown Court?
No, Magistrates Court. We couldn't get it into a Crown Court. It's such a low-level offence. I tried prior to that, actually. I was so, obviously, you could tell I was furious at what they've done. And people were saying to me, you can get it transferred to the Crown Court if you try and change the jurisdiction in the court to a common law jurisdiction. I tried all that. I ended up trying to ask the judge if he was on his oath, so that I could try and ascertain some control in the court, looking at the jurisdiction, making sure that it's a common law jurisdiction, and exercising my rights to a trial by jury. I did try that. The judge threatened me. The judge said, if you don't stand in that dock now in 5 minutes, I'll have you thrown in there. And I said very respectfully, you don't have to threaten me. I'm not violent. I'm asking a lawful question in a very peaceful way. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a plumber. And I just want this to be fair. That's all I'm asking. And he said, if you're not in there in 5 minutes, you'll be thrown in there. And the security were there. And I thought, if they have to touch me and manhandle me into the dock, that will be reported. Anyone that knows me knows that I would never cause any fights and trouble. That just wouldn't happen. However, it would be reported that there was a breach of peace in court. I'd struggled and was aggressive and all that kind of stuff. And that's how it would be reported. And I was not going to allow that to happen. So I did. Went into the dock. The judge came back in. I said, I apologise. I'm just trying to ask. I apologise. I'm not trying to cause any problems. I just want to make sure my rights are enshrined. Obviously, just crushed them. I just completely crushed them. At that point, that's when I decided that I was going to get the best lawyer that I could, and some friends and customers, believe it or not, customers, didn't want me to go to prison. The police were pushing for a minor custodial sentence of sort of 3 to 6 months inside for this. So I was going to fight it all the way. There's no way I was going to let them get there. Barrister was great. Barrister, Michael Wolkind, QC, Britain's best cross-examiner at the bar. He said that they disclosed the. I was just saying that we've been helped, but I've personally been helped by so many senior officers, including a couple of chief constables, who were just truly appalled. Just truly appalled. One officer, after the first time I'd been arrested, one officer got to see the interview, and he said, "You won't be charged." He said, "You will not be charged. You haven't committed any offence." This is back in relation to the charge concerning my website. He said, "You won't be charged." I said, "Well, they're definitely going to charge. They'll find somebody to charge me." And he said, "Look, if I used my weight, my position, and leaned on the CPS and said, I want this guy charged with something, if I used my weight, I could probably force it through." He said, would I want to be associated with all this rubbish, for want of a better word? He said, "Not in a million years. You will not be charged." So I bet him the Big Mac that I would be. He still owes me a Big Mac. But as you can see, but coming back, so we got progressively through the trial. The actual charge of creating a website that harassed this guy into resignation, well, that couldn't stand because he'd resigned 6 weeks before the website was built, so that was thrown out. All the forensic stuff, well, the forensic investigator for the police, Matt Mansell, said nothing that he said applied to me. The police officer lied about the drugs, made that up to discredit me. He was completely discredited. Sarah Mayo, the officer, said, "I put thousands of messages on Facebook and Twitter," but then said actually she'd never seen any, but she believed it was my intention to. Well, that didn't hold any weight. And what was really interesting was my barrister forced her, and she tried everything to wriggle out of answering the question. He got her into a corner where he kept saying to her, "You have denied my client, Ian Puddick, his lawful common law rights." And she tried everything to worm out of it. And in the end, and this was my defence, by the way, through my case. You know, when you go, I can say it like I know all. When you go to court, obviously you have a defence. And under statute law, that could be another case. You could say, well, in another case, blah, 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 which is similar to mine, and you can use that case to argue your case. Well, we didn't do any of that. We used the common law defence of reasonableness. Would the average man on the street look at what all the things they've done to me and say that I behave reasonably, yes or no? And that was my defence. And Michael Wolkine QC got Sarah Mayo into a corner and said, as a counter-terrorism officer, or as any police officer, it would apply equally, you have a lawful duty to offer a common law defence of reasonableness to anyone. And look at the alleged crime, look at the person's behaviour, have they behaved reasonably? If they have, then no offence has been committed. Did you offer myself the common law defence of reasonableness, which was what we used in court? And she tried everything to not answer the question. And in the end she said no. And he said, so you effectively denied, and you spent all these millions of pounds when a common law defence of reasonableness would have been suffice. And she had to admit that she did deny me my common law rights. So now in the process of suing the police. What have I done since? Obviously it was a landmark victory for freedom of speech. It's been debated in Parliament. The police have all freedom of information requests pertaining to cost. The police have said, but due to all the police cuts, the cost of them looking at the cost of the operation to keep on arresting me and harassing me would be so great, it would be disproportionate for them to release the money. So they can't tell you how much it cost. Some good news, very, very recently, there's a new TV show that hasn't started yet, I believe it's going to be on ITV. It's called I Want to Meet. And what they want to do is get two controversial figures to come and debate the subject without them being politicians. And mine's going to be the pilot for the show. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on ITV, and you've got Adrian Leppard, the Commissioner of City of London Police, that authorised all this nonsense, and I'm going to debate this case with him. Now, as we understand it at the moment, he's declining to go on TV. Now, as a public servant, he has a duty of care and a responsibility to be accountable. Let's see if he's accountable. Any questions?
Do you?
Sir.
Well, you find the words accountability, unfortunately. Listening to what you said, you appear to have caught the City of London Police at it.
Like wouldn't believe.
Yeah. Unfortunately, what's happening in the regions is far, far worse. It is being covered up.
Well,
Plenty of victims now.
there are. I mean, I promise you, I get emails. We get emails every day at my office. People ringing up asking for advice. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer or any of these things. I just knew what they did to me was wrong, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. That was it. But there's things that I hear that are far worse than what I've gone through. But no one should have to be arrested regularly by counter-terrorist police for all this rubbish. Absolutely not. If you have a look on my website, Chris Plumley, Channel 4 Dispatches, is now investigating it, and he's made a short sort of 10-12 minute. I think you've seen it, haven't you, Dwayne? Short 10-12 minute program on I've put it on my website, which is like a little trailer, which should be out. The full documentary should be out later this year, and they've got the estimates of the whole operation into millions. I mean, they don't mess around. But to get it into the public domain is near on impossible. And you pick up newspapers and you read stories about people rescuing cats and stuff from trees. And you think, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
Yeah, Christine next.
Sorry.
Well, do you feel, it's a bit of a controversial comment in a way, did you feel threatened at times?
When they broke into my house?
Really threatened?
No, I felt threatened. I felt genuinely threatened on 2 occasions when they took me through to that room, and I've sat there on this chair that was fixed to the floor, and he's screaming in my face, effing and blinding. I could smell his cigarette breath in my face, and he's accusing me all that kind of stuff. I didn't know about the law. I don't know what the police can do, what they can't do, but I just knew it was wrong. I just knew, as a public servant, that was wrong. I felt threatened then, and when they broke into my house and stole all my court defence documents, that was a message to me, because Ron Cuffley, for example, the forensics intelligence officer that helped us throughout our case, he said if they were going to do a professional job, they would have been in your place, they would have scanned all your documents, they would have gone, you would never have known they'd been there. They wanted to send a powerful message to you that if your house is open game to complete strangers, nothing is. That's the only other time I felt very, very threatened. And it just spurred me on to not let them get away with it, to be honest with you.
Were you at a police station?
Sorry?
You were at a police station?
The first one I was in a police station, yeah.
Where was the room that they...
Downstairs in a back
would there
room.
have been a police sergeant up at it?
Yeah, but they all colluded. No one could remember anything. All the CCTV got wiped when they investigated it. Yeah. Yeah, CCTV all got wiped.
How many of the officers who lied and conducted themselves like that have subsequently lost their jobs?
None at all. When to be fair, I tell you one of the questions I get asked a lot, and to be fair, I'm personally quite happy with the answer that I give. People always say to me, hang on, when we came out of court that day when the Ellis had lied about brutalising me and then about the crack cocaine paraphernalia, and it was absolutely blatant because he was absolutely annihilated by my barrister, and my barrister came out and said, look, I want to tell you what he said, call him a lying so-and-so. I was saying, well, why didn't the judge do something? Why didn't the judge say, hang on, this guy's clearly lying on his own. Why didn't the judge do something? And the answer I was given, which I do accept, by the way, is when you go to court, people do tell lies, they do bend the truth, they do this. If the judge, in any case, was to say, stop, you've just told a lie, hey, let's stop the trial, you've just told a lie, he's not told a lie, it would just be chaos. The judge listens to it all, to get it over and done with, and then if there's any further representations about people lying, it can be addressed. But people don't follow them up. People don't do what I did. They don't go to Hyde Park. They don't. I'm not suggesting they all should do that, but if it's really important to you, I would suggest that to anybody that they should, if that makes sense.
Derek, it's Derek next.
Ian, I just want to thank you.
Would you please address, excuse me, Derek, would you please mind addressing your questions to me, please? Derek, go on.
Ian, I just want to thank you on behalf of the general public. You've stood up to become, it takes a lot of guts to do that.
I didn't feel I had any choice, but thank you very much. Thank you.
Wife and I have tried to stand up and counted, but you end up, on many occasions, being pointed at as being a bit of an idiot or a fool for what you're doing. But I know when we lived in Wales, I can remember saying there was a hell of a lot of apathy in the place, and our campaign was been against the health authority.
Yeah, John was saying.
And we've also been involved with the police as well.
Yeah.
But we've also, what we've said is that there's a hell of a lot of apathy up there. And if you could put VAT on apathy, it would cover the cost of the health service.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of confidence to do what you've done.
Well, Pete, thank you. It's very kind of you. Thank you. People just.
I'd like to just say one thing.
Sure.
A little girl, and she went to the monument one time. When children go to the monument, they give the children a certificate, and the monument is inside the city.
Yeah.
And the small print on this certificate, this to give the children, it says, "We, the inhabitants of the City of London, are unaccountable, untouchable to anybody. We are a law unto ourselves, and we cannot be touched." Words to that effect is have a children's certificate and you walk down the monument.
Incredible.
So the police.
Well, the police are effectively above the law. Yeah. Just a reminder, there's lots of good ones. They're not all bad, obviously. No, nobody's above the law, but they behave as if they are.
The IPCC is run by a retired police officer.
The IPCC is the biggest joke going. If we get to do this live, if we get to do this debate on ITV, I will be. That will be a huge focus of my attention. It's a joke. It's an
I
absolute joke.
see one thing, you won't be allowed to say one word against the judiciary.
Do you know what? Well, we'll see. We'll see. I don't see how that would be a problem. The judge dismissed the charges against me, so I was, to be fair, I was crying so much when the case was over and she dismissed the charges and threw it out. The security guard opened the door to the dock, but I was just so emotional I couldn't move, to be honest with you. I was just so pleased it was all over. I was so pleased. And really, for me, the closure that was going to come, really, when I win the trial, hopefully win the trial, and that would be it. But it continued in the trial because they were lying. And I just thought, no, they're not going to let them get away with it. Well, we're doing that now. We're starting that now.
How ran your company in parallel?
Well, the truth is, I'll say this on camera, we lost, my turnover of my business dropped by just within 12 months. I'm not obviously a working plumber anymore. I'm not out there I'm not out there on the tools. My job is to make the phones ring, to keep the work coming in, to keep the company functioning, if that makes sense. Because obviously, if the phones don't ring, there's no plumbing jobs. We wouldn't be around for very long. So all the marketing that I was doing, I didn't stop it, but it was all ad hoc. So the turnover of my business dropped by just over £500,000 within that period. I didn't let anyone go because it's not their fault. Married people with mortgages and kids, it's not their fault that I'm out camping. I mean, we make jokes of it because it's funny now and it's funny to students to see the pictures. But it was incredibly serious. I wasn't going to let anybody go, and I just kept borrowing money to keep things going. I said I borrowed money from friends who trust me, and I've always kept my promises. And the bank really, the banks get a kicking. We made a big loss last year, and we're just doing our accounts this year now, the end of this month, a couple of weeks' time. So we've turned around last year's loss and made a small profit. So the bank's happy. But the bank kept me going through this. I have to say, if the bank didn't, I wouldn't be here. Well, I say I wouldn't be here, but I wouldn't have a company, and everyone would have been made redundant. So there's a happy tale to it. But I am suing the police now. There will be a private prosecution against the police for perverting the course of justice, amongst many, many other things.
The fact that you're suing the police, will the IPC be forced to inquiry into the officers who lied in court?
Well, what will happen, based on the police officers that I've been speaking to, they'll all retire on full pensions. They'll go sick before it starts. They'll go sick. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Before the inquiry physically starts, they'll get the nod that this is happening. They'll suddenly go sick. The minute they go sick, they're untouchable, and then they get pensioned off. But they are. They're very, very rarely do police officers prosecute. If you see in the news that a police officer's been prosecuted, they would have done almost everything. Because what the Peter Fahy, who's the chief constable at ACPO, the Association of Police Constables, he was on Panorama, and he said on Panorama about police corruption, the public do not want the police to be prosecuted because of the expense. The public don't want all the money wasted, the lengthy investigations. So they do some really bad things. They just either resign or they get pensioned off. So they are effectively above the law. It's outrageous. It's absolutely disgusting.
Steve, yeah.
In the Daily Mail a couple of years ago, when Sir Ian Blair was the head, there was a particular article, I remember the number, it was 264 net police officers, all with convictions.
Yeah.
So back to those 204 still employed. Convictions for rape, theft, burglary, drugs, the lot.
Oh.
260 plus net officers.
I've got I've got a huge following on Twitter. I think this morning it was up to about 64,000, and all I do is tweet on police corruption. And because of my case, I built up a really good network and relationship with all the journalists, and they literally text me as a text message little stories about police corruption that are being covered up that they're not allowed to print, and I tweet them out. And people follow me because of and it's all police corruption. And I have to say, 85% of the tweets are my own. They're from journalists. I don't sit there all day. I'm trying to build my business up. But I do put it out there.
The media, we know that the media are muzzled and have always been muzzled, but there must have been a lot of people in the media, like the police, who want to tell the truth.
Yeah,
so
sure, that's true.
It's very unusual that they might get an outlet through someone like yourself.
Well, to be, I don't know enough about the media. I know how it works. They're very journalists are very lazy. They're inundated with stories all day long. There's no shortage of news stories.
They don't want to know.
But they don't want to know anything that's going to be a bit complicated, take time. They're very, very lazy. In my case, all they wanted was all the salacious stuff about the affair and all that. Missed the point. But the tide is changing with Leveson. I know there's lots of issues about people talk about Leveson, but it's fairly public in terms of, if you look at the language that's used. Up until 3 weeks ago, they were just saying journalists bribed public officials. They never said police. They always said public officials, meaning the police. It's a very nice way of saying police corruption. Now, they talk about police corruption openly. So it's slowly changing. And whereas the boys in blue are always seen to be generally beyond reproach, well, we know that's not true. That's not true.
We've been involved with many.
Yeah.
We've been involved with many investigative journalists, and they say they can spend a long time on getting everything perfect
For nothing.
to get it published. But the problem is, it gets to the editor may okay it, but then it goes to the legal department. And once it goes to the legal department,
Yes.
you're involved with the old boy network, and it's not published. And that's how exactly it works.
Jamie Doward, who's the Home Affairs editor at the Observer, said to me, do you think it's the Masons? Do you think it's the Masons? So I don't know. Old boys. Well, to be fair, the old boys club, the old golf club, the old school tie, the Masons, whatever. The reality is, though, you're never going to prove it. So I never say, it's this or it's that, because I don't know. It's going to be something like that, of course. Be something like that, but the bottom line is, people say, by the way, the ITV, when they were looking at this new show, they said, you need to get KROLL in there, because KROLL, the private security company, Benedict Hamilton, the guy who rung you up and said, we're going to F you, and then pulled in all these favours. And I said, no, they're not the culprits. KROLL misbehaved, and they will long continue to do that. Way beyond my life on this planet. The issue is the police are meant to be beyond reproach. They're meant to be above all this rubbish. And it's them as public servants to protect us. So we'll see if we get Adrian Leppard on the TV.
I didn't sort of put Craig into doing anything.
One final note, which is a ray of hope, really, for freedom of speech. The pressure's going to start mounting at some point on Adrian Leppard, City of London Police, to come on TV and debate this. I've obviously agreed to do it. he's obviously going to keep declining. And everyone's heard of Max Clifford, the PR guy. Well, the number 2 PR guy company in the UK is a company named after a guy called Mark Bukowski. He does big stuff. He's looking, Julian Assange, WikiLeaks. He's representing Julian Assange. He's up there with the gods. I spoke to Mark Bukowski this morning, and he said, what we'll do is we're going to start a national media campaign to get this guy, Adrian Lepard, on the TV as a public servant to be accountable for all this nonsense. So we'll see where it goes. Above that is the Commissioner. He authorised it all.
Is the Commissioner of the City of London?
Only City of London. It's not the Met, because people always refer to my story of the Met.
Can I mention that contentious issue that Dave mentioned about the contentious issue where they definitely won't push anything to do with the interest, which is drags down the police.
Yeah.
If there's a guy who beat the police, they won't do it because it impugns the police here as well.
Yeah,
You have thousands of people.
It's amazing how many police officers follow me on Twitter. It's true.
Is your television programme one of the live?
Which one? The debate?
Yeah.
The debate won't be live. No, it won't be. But I've been assured that as long as what I say is true and proven in court and I can back up, which I can, that's it. So it will be contentious. It will be embarrassing. Let's see if he stands up and takes the challenge.
So who triggered this off, Ian, when you made a phone call?
The private security company KROLL. They used their contacts.
Someone must have contacted them to say.
Yeah, the reinsurance company, the guy that had the affair.
So it all comes back from.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Business for everybody.
Did he get any flack back for the back-to-back training?
He got a massive payoff and went to be a vice president elsewhere. Yeah.
It's amazing.
You have to respect the system sometimes.
It's amazing the police can find so much money to do what they did to you.
Yeah.
When
They tried.
They're actually supposed to be short of money.
They tried because this guy. I'll tell you this only because it's a small inconsequential, but it will show the veracity of the police in terms of what they tried to do to me. They tried to. They didn't. To be fair, they didn't. But they tried really hard to prove that I'd committed fraud, and the fraud was my domain name, ianpuddick.com, which I'd hope you, when you've got 5 minutes, do go and have a look at my website. If you look at my website, ianpuddick.com, obviously I bought that domain name for £7.90. I bought it on my company MasterCard, and they said that was fraud. They said that because they said it's not a legitimate business expense. And I said it is because I'm trying to divert I'm constantly being arrested by the counter-terrorism squad, and I don't want my company to be too affected by this. So you want to keep coming after me, that's fine. But my company, Leakbusters, the plumbing company, I don't want that to be involved. So this is a legitimate business expense, £7.90, to protect my company. They said it wasn't, and then they took advice, and then they said, oh, maybe it was. But they tried. They arrested me and questioned me about that.
Did they ever try and attack your psychiatry or mental?
No, people have asked me that lots of times. No, not that I know of. I need to grind me down.
Well, the smears.
Well, there were smears. Who made the smears? I don't know. My accountant got an anonymous call. He made a statement for the court. My accountant got an anonymous call saying that I was an undeclared bankrupt and I'd gone bankrupt. Obviously that's not true. Some of my suppliers, obviously you can't target my customers because my customers are the public. So when the phone rings in the office, I don't know whether it's Mrs. Smith or Mr. Jones. We don't know. So you can't target them. So some of my suppliers all got anonymous calls saying, Leakbusters are just about to go bust, get your money in now. And my accountant was told that I was a convicted drug dealer. My accountant. He got an anonymous call one evening. He made a statement. He was contacted and said, did you know that the managing director of Leakbusters is a convicted drug dealer? So, but it's just... I don't believe the police were behind that. I believe that the private security companies.
So the whole cocaine thing was them really pushing their luck and not hoping
It's just a spin.
Challenge.
No.
Because the minute it was challenged, they had absolutely not backed themselves up at all.
No.
So they must have been very confident it would never get that far.
Well, to be fair, if you were there in the court, Sergeant John Ellis, when he brought that up, he was getting absolutely slaughtered by my barrister. And he goes, and he's just like, well, we found a cache of crack cocaine. Oh, really? Yeah, we found it.
He never recorded it. He never backed himself up.
No.
How stupid is that?
No. Honestly, the whole thing was stupid. The whole thing was stupid.
Yeah, at what point did you get your computers and your stuff was seized? Did you get China?
6 months, over 6 months later. And then I was scared to use it in case they planted stuff on it. But by that point, I'd already bought other stuff to keep my business going. The computers aren't expensive. You buy computers for £200, £300. It's the data, the information on them that crippled my business. But obviously, they don't care about that.
They were trying to discreet.
Yeah.
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 Is that through your barrister getting it back?
No, they had to return it. Yeah.
There's something else though, that you can claim expenses against for
We're suing them.
yeah,
We're taking civil action against them now. So yeah.
yeah.
So loss of earnings could be massive.
Yeah.
When do you think this will come up with?
The civil proceedings will start in the next within 3 months. Within 3 months. The documentary for the Chris Plumme's Channel 4 Dispatches documentary will be out later this year. A lot of that's going to be revolved around the court case. And then the documentary, the PR guy, Mark Bukowski, rang me this morning and said, have you heard from your lawyers? Because they want to tie it in so that, you know, if they can get it in before my court case, anything that helps, you know, promote the court case. Because the police need to be held to account. I'm not above the law, nor are they. They think they are.
Where would the court be?
It'll be in Royal Courts of Justice in London. Be big, yeah. Crown Court.
Well,
I'll be blogging it, trust me.
Dwayne, you'll keep us in touch with all
Yeah.
this, won't you? Yeah, that's all.
Thank you ever so much for all your questions. Thank you.